Hello and welcome to Tramble, Tarot, and. It's a tarot podcast that's not just about tarot. This is where I interview interesting people like writers, artists, polymaths, and community organizers, and we discuss what they're doing with their lives, with their projects, what they've got going on. But I do it within the framework of tarot. And this is where I put myself on the spot. The questions are not prepared. The questions are informed by the cards I pull spontaneously from my tarot deck. And this means you and the guests and I will know the questions and the cards all at the same time. Then I will ask a question related to the card. Now, the purpose of this podcast is not just to show you how tarot links to life and to the world, but I'd also like to introduce you to some really interesting people that I see as change makers, and I think you should know them, if I can say so myself. So today, Tramble, Tarot, and Sasha Huber. Now, Sasha is a multidisciplinary, multi-talented, multicultural visual artist whose work highlights the global effect of racism and colonialism. And Sasha provides a very strong antidote to this epidemic of historical amnesia that the world is going through right now. Sasha has never, ever been afraid to challenge the status quo with her work. As a matter of fact, that challenge forms the basis of her work. For example, Sasha has lent her work, her research, and even her body and her spirit in the push to remove the name of Swiss-American scientist, eugenicist, and if I may say racist, Louis Agassiz from a mountain bearing his name here in Switzerland and in other sites around the world, using her camera, her body, and her staple gun. Sasha is an internationally recognized artist. Her work has been shown throughout Europe, the US, Australia, New Zealand, South America, and the Caribbean. Sasha is Swiss with Haitian roots and lives in Finland. And Sasha, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. What is it like for you to listen to all of these accolades, the things that you've done, and I just see you're just calm with it.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me. And I feel very relaxed in your company. We know each other already. So I sometimes, when this happens, of course, it has happened many times that I was introduced. And then I listen from outside, it gives a kind of a different perspective when you hear someone saying who you are and what you have done in your life. And well, I just turned 50 somehow, and it's like a moment of like looking back a bit what has happened. And yeah, time flies so incredibly fast that I'm surprised sometimes.
Yeah. How did we meet?
It was several years ago where suddenly you contacted me on Instagram. We didn't know each other yet, and you said that you are in Leukerbad in the Swiss Alps, in this village in the canton Wallis, and you said that you're trying to find the portrait of James Baldwin that I made in 2018.
Now, the house that we are talking about, let's move back for just a second. Leukerbad is this very, very tiny village it's in Wallis, I believe. It's in Wallis. It's Canton Wallis in Switzerland. And this is where James Baldwin, if you're familiar with the essay Stranger in the Village that I think Baldwin wrote in 1951, it was in Notes from a Native Son. And this is a village where James Baldwin stayed, correct? When he was writing Go Tell It on the Mountain. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And he wrote about his experiences there. And so, I wanted to just, see the house and see the portrait that you made. And let's just go ahead and get started with, discussing that. Our first card is the Five of Swords. Now, the Five of Swords is this card of conflict, we see these people with, they're walking away from the person that they apparently have been fighting with. They have dropped their swords. And there's a person in the front who is holding a sword. And maybe that person has won, maybe it hasn't, but it's like the person had to think about, was this fight worth it or was it not worth it? Now, getting to this portrait that you did of James Baldwin in Loikabad, tell us, how did that happen? How did you decide to do that? And was there a fight to get that portrait made? And take us through the process to get that done. And was there ever a point when you said, I don't know if this is worth it or not?
Yeah, so I mean, he stayed there temporarily between 51 and 53 because his partner, Lucia Happersberger, who was a painter, and they met in Paris, and his parents had this chalet, and he offered him the idea to go there to write and can concentrate there more than in Paris to work on this piece, on his first book. And the village itself didn't have anything officially that would show his presence in Loikabad. I didn't know how the house looks like. So the original idea was to portray him directly on the facade, but the house was made of shingles, like a fish skin it looked, so it was not possible. And then we discovered this door, and then we decided, this window shutter would fit really well. But then I didn't yet take it along because I wanted to take contact with the estate, James Baldwin estate in New York, and then to tell that idea first before I start this. And then I did get answer. This lady, I don't remember her name. She passed away since, and she said they have no objection to do this and so on. And then I felt, okay, now I have like the permission to do it. And somehow there was no, but based on this card you're pulling, there was no problem doing it. And it was, in a way, an interesting synchronicity because at the time when I then went back, I picked up the window shutter, and it exactly fit in my luggage. It was like made, it's like snuck back in there.
Quick question. Did the owner know that James Baldwin had stayed in that house you... Oh, okay.
Yes, it's known in the village. And we also, at some other time when I went there, also met Elder. And she was a child at the time when he was in Loikabad. So she remembered him even from that time. So that was quite interesting.
It's interesting because I just turned another card. You have another 5. So it's another card of conflict. We have the 5 of Wands. The 5 of Wands, 5s in tarot, the way I read tarot, represents conflict. The 5 of Wands, it is a conflict, but it's not a serious conflict. You have 5 people holding these wands, and they're sort of fighting each other. But as I said, it's not serious. It's almost like they're brainstorming, or they're pretending, or they're trying. For you in your work as a creative, for example, like with the James Baldwin portrait, and with wands representing creativity and spark and passion, how do you work through the noise of everything? Like even with James Baldwin, there are so many people who quote him, who hang on to them, who give their own views of what he meant. How do you work through that so that your creativity and what you want to say gets through all of those wands that are crossed up?
I think it's like a ripple effect that he's still rippling, and he's still so present through that. The fact that so many people keep on citing him, being inspired by him. So I think the more, the better. And everybody has their own personal entrance into his life or work. So, and I also think I would like interpret this card in a way that all of us, not only artists, but writers and thinkers who have as a kind of a mission or life task to tackle this kind of difficult and very traumatic and terrible histories and turn them around also. And it's as well, I feel it's like a collective effort to digest these experiences that our ancestors had before us, which is so complex, and which also Baldwin says, I can say that history is not the past, it's the present. So, and that is the struggle, I think, that we all found ways of dealing with them. And in my work, I always try to make work that reminds about these issues, but not to re-traumatize people as well, because I want to highlight the strengths that have been suppressed, the positive sides that have been made go, not, yeah, they were like below the surface, and now they come to the surface somehow.
It's interesting when you said turn this around. I turned the card around, and with the Five of Wands, it's interesting because up here at the top, it looks like they're all sort of fighting and doing this. But if you turn the card around, you see that everyone is standing firm and they have even the same stance. So maybe this, what we see, and everybody is talking about James Baldwin, and maybe if we take a more positive view of the card, it's, yes, it looks like this is what's going on at the top, but at the bottom, when we turn it around, we see that everyone is firm. They're standing. We're standing on our ancestry. They're standing on the earth. And so it's very good that you talked about that and talked about turning that around with Baldwin. Okay, so let's see what we have next here. We have the King of Wands. So the King of Wands is about leading with creativity. I'm going to move to a topic that has been in the news, and that is the situation with Harvard and Tamara Lanier and Renty. Renty was an enslaved person who was photographed in the mid 1800s by Louis Agassiz. And you and also Hans Fassler have been at the forefront, at least here in Switzerland, of coming up with creative ways to bring attention to the situation with Louis Agassiz and Renty and the situation with the photographs. Would you mind explaining that case with Renty Horn, Tamara Lanier, and these really innovative ways that you all have highlighted what's going on, even your trip in a helicopter. And we can talk about that when you went to the top of Agassiz Mountain, or whatever it is, to put down a plate honoring Renty Horn, because that was a King of Wands move.
Yeah, yes, that's right. It started originally 2006 when my sister gifted me the book called Travel in Black and White, Swiss place appointments in relation to slavery and the slave trade. I translated that now from German. It's unfortunately it doesn't exist in English, but in French. But yeah, so my sister gifted me the book. It was at the time maybe the third book about the subject, how Switzerland is related to this time, the colonial project, which is not known and not taught during school time when I went to school in Switzerland. And it was written by Hans Fassler, and it made me contact him.
Just for folks who may not know, because Hans is very Swiss-based, who is Hans Fassler?
Yes, so he's a historian and activist. Somehow, like not as a main occupation at the time. Now he's retired and he's full-time, he's very busy. And he was he's very, since decades, he is very active in the reckoning of the Swiss history in relation to the colonialism. And he's unearthing all the time, very, very well researched. And it was him who then in 2007, when the 200-year birthday of Louis Agassiz was celebrated with exhibitions and so on. And he observed that the history telling of this Louis Agassiz was merely highlighting his merits in relation to glaciology, ice age theory, which he didn't invent, something that he kind of tried to claim that he did. But that resulted in the fact that there are over 80 places named after him around the world, even on the moon and on Mars, and 7 species. But what was left out in these celebrative exhibitions is that the fact that when he moved to the US in 1846, that he then, when he saw Black people, started to develop his racism and becoming one of the most influential racists of the 19th century, and then used the then still new technology of photography in 1850 to commission photographs made of Renty, who was still born in Congo, his daughter Delia, and Fasena, Alfred, Jem, and Jack and Rana. Jack and Rana was also father-daughter without clothes. So he kind of wanted to use these photographs to try to prove the inferiority of Black people, just because how they look. I mean, and so Hans felt that part of his history should be also told. And then he had the idea to suggest how would it be to rename one of the mountains in the Swiss Alps after Renty, in honor of Renty and people who experienced similar fates.
Mm-hmm. So you hired a helicopter. You got a helicopter with the photographer, and you had a plaque. And so you got in that helicopter with that plaque, and then what did you do? That's you, exactly. That's you on that mountain. You took things into your own hands to rename that mountain unofficially yourself. Did you know that? Well, the first thing is, did you know that you were doing something out of the box, or did you not think about it? You just said, you know what, I'm just going to do it.
Yes, that somehow it just had this idea that I want to go rename it and not wait. All these 3 communes would give their feedback, and the 3 communes, because the mountain is located on those 3 communes and 2 cantons, which would have required all of them to say yes. And it wasn't happening even till today. Officially, it's not renamed, but it is renamed in the virtual world. Actually, there is a app called Peak Finder, which helps you to identify the name of the different mountains, and there they added Renty. The action was filmed and then also photographed and so on. And then 4 years later, 2012, I got an email, and also Hans got an email of Tamara Lanier, because her daughters found the petition website I made, which I told the story. And then she said, "Hey, Mike, this is Renty is my ancestor. And this is a really amazing work you're doing. Can she support us in some way?" And then she came to Switzerland 2012 to the opening of one exhibition that we could do as a kind of a compromise, because the name wasn't renamed, also it was still in process, in one of the villages there called Grindelwald. Then she came there with her daughters. That's how we met in person. Then she could speak about Renty as, give him this humanity back that was literally stripped from him. For example, that he could read, that he was a spiritual man, that he was keeping secret Bible circles, and all these things that was not documented at the time. And what Hans did, he tried to he did contact the Agassiz descendants in Switzerland, because Agassiz had a family in Switzerland. But then when he moved to the States, he had a new family there. And Tamara tried then to get the copyright of those photographs from it's owned by the Peabody Museum of Harvard, and they didn't give it to her.
And Harvard was holding on to those photographs.
Yeah, because at that time if you wanted to use the photos for something, you would have to have credentials. You would have to have a reason for a publication. then you would pay for it also, and so
And
on.
she wasn't getting any of that money.
No, no. That's
Of
it.
course not.
Exactly. And then 2019, she had enough. She said, okay, now I file a lawsuit.
And then Tamara, she finally got a win. Well, we're recording this in June. It was in May when Harvard finally said,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, well, first it was dismissed, and then it went further to Supreme Court, and then the result was that she can file a lawsuit concerning the distress that it caused to her. What I did 2021, I revisited the archive again, this so-called slave daguerreotype series, because already 2008 I made a drawing of Renty.
And that was Tailoring, if I get it correct, Tailoring Freedom series. And you dressed Renty and his daughter.
I went back to the series and I made this Tailoring Freedom series, which is this. I can show. They are a diptych, but for the book it's 2 parts. So I reproduced the photographs onto wood, and then I clothed the persons, Renty and Delia, with the staples, because the stapling for me is like, stitching the colonial wound with this gun that has also a lot of pain in there.
Yeah, let's talk about the stapling for just a second, because we're talking about something that is so violent, like slavery is violent. And then that staple gun itself, there's like this, the act of stapling is very violent. But on the other hand, there is some type of healing. There is some type of a release through that. And so we have this Nine of Cups here, which normally the Nine of Cups is about this, it's almost like a smugness. You see what I did, you see what I've accomplished, but there's also there's this sense of an emotional accomplishment. Like, I have gotten this out, and now you see I'm sitting here proud. How is that for you when you use that staple gun for something like Renty and Dahlia, or with your other work? Is that a way for you to, I don't know, reconcile? I'm not using the right word. It's not about reconciling the violence, but using this violent act of slavery, of colonialism, and you're using that staple gun, which is violent, but then there's this emotional thing to it where it's almost like a release. Is it that for you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was a bit of a process that I maybe should talk about for a short moment, because when I started to work with this practice already 2004, it was a time when I wanted to go to Haiti, and my mother would say, "Don't go, it's too dangerous," which made me then want to know more. Why is it as it is? What's the history there? And so on. And
so your mother is Haitian.
Yes. Yeah.
Your father is Swiss.
Exactly. Yes.
And they met in the US.
Yes, in New York, which was exactly my mother's family moved to New York in 1965, around that time. But I have my family that remained in Haiti too. I always was drawn to my mother's family and the history, and through art I was able to kind of, also I feel sometimes it's like a compensation also of not to, haven't had a chance to be there much, just to New York mostly, but then only my childhood I went to Haiti with the family, and then during my studies here in Finland, I was already in Finland, I discovered this staple gun in the workshop, and I thought, oh, I want to, try this out, taste how this feels like. And when I did, I realized while working that, this has such a strong symbolism with this, you have to pull the trigger, the weight of the tool it's metal, it's heavy, it's really like a gun. You have to protect.
It's loud.
It's loud, especially when I shoot on wood. You have to protect your ears and eyes. And then at that time, I was so frustrated about this history that has been so hard on Haiti, even having such an incredible, the Haitian Revolution and all these things that actually don't they are not taught in France. Haitian Revolution is not taught in France. I found out many years ago, and now recently again, a French person told me, no, we don't know about the Haitian Revolution. Anyways, that's another topic. But that time I could use the tool to shoot back at people that were responsible of the troubles in Haiti. So the starting point was a portrait of Columbus. I shot Columbus, basically the series is called Shooting Back. And then I shot like that, the Duvalier, father, son. And at that time, it felt really good that I could kind of, through the symbolic act, shoot back. And each shot was for me like symbolizing a defending of someone who died in this whole colonialism and during the dictatorship, where so many people were harmed and killed. But then the end result was a impressive portrait of people who did so much harm and who have been written down in history books and so on. I felt like I had to disconnect from this because I realized that I'm using my energy to do this, and it didn't feel right.
I wanted to ask you about that because we got the Seven of Wands here, and you got a lot of wands. The Seven of Wands is someone who you see a person with their wand, and they're fighting all of these people down at the bottom, and they have wands too. And this card is usually about, keep up the fight, keep fighting for your ideas, keep fighting what you believe in. And, singularly, yeah, that's cool. It's cool to say, but it wears you out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and so exactly what you were talking about, what you're doing with the shooting, with, fighting, you're fighting, the ripple effect of colonialism with your ideas, with your work. But yeah, doesn't that wear you out with the fighting all the time? Or did it not, especially with that staple gun and what you were doing with it? How did you work through that?
Yeah, it fits now still, because at that time I was still angry. And then I decided I stopped this portrait making of this kind of man. And I stopped with the portrait of Agassiz, also shooting back Louis Agassiz. And then I decided to draw my attention to answer my ancestors and people who were negatively affected by it. And then the methodology of this shooting changed in becoming of this, stitching the colonial wound, because what you see looks almost like stitched. And now in the case of the tailoring freedom, it's like to the point, because I've done also other work, for example, the work called Sea of the Lost, which is made of 200,000 staples, forming the Atlantic Ocean, the waves onto a wood cut in.
I must say that's breathtaking.
You saw that? Yes, it's like cut in the shape of a ship, but then it looks like a coffin, and so on. And it reminds of people who didn't. It's like a commemoration to people who didn't survive the Middle Passage. There were almost 2 million people, and then it also reminds of people in the Mediterranean Sea that, like Mediterranean Middle Passage, so to say, that in our lifetime now drown and have to travel, like forced to migrate. And in the tailoring freedom, I just still wanted to say what happens is that the cloth becomes also like a armor that would protect them, their bodies, their personalities, and they would also. Tamara, when I presented her the portraits, because I gifted her the portraits, said that I was able to take them out of their circumstance through dressing them into their. She said it looks like their Sunday's best, the suit and the dress, and actually the suit of Renty, and also the other individuals I portrayed at the end. And as well, by 2013, I finished the whole 15-part series. Were inspired by photographs. I saw Frederick Douglass, somebody who was able to still get free in his lifetime and who was so often photographed also, and knowing the power of the portrait. And so that kind of symbolically gave the feeling of this freedom that they didn't have in their lifetimes. And the dress of Delia was inspired by a photograph I saw of Harriet Tubman. And Drana's dress was inspired by a photograph I saw of Sojourner Truth. So it was kind of a way of imagining this freedom through this way.
Now we're on our final card, and it's interesting. We got death, as you were talking about the ancestors. You were talking about that history. So it's two questions here. The first, when the death card can be about, death, the death of something, not a person, but a death of maybe doing something, the end of a cycle. But it can also be about transfiguration and taking things up a level, or like operating at a higher level. How has your work, you're talking about the ancestors and all, it's almost like your work is an offering to the ancestors. You mentioned how you turned your attention away from using that staple gun for Christopher Columbus and towards the ancestors. Is this part of how you are honoring the ancestors and giving back to the ancestors, those who have passed?
Mm-hmm. In a way, to still mention Tamara's case, this came now to an end, and this feels almost like you can breathe out. I must say, I forgot to say what happened. So
yeah, go ahead, please do. Yeah,
relinquishes those 15 images, also not only Renty and Delia, but the whole series, to the International African American Museum in Charleston, in South Carolina, to where which is a place, South Carolina is where they were enslaved on a plantation camp. So in a way, this is like, Benjamin Crump said, it's never too late to do the right thing. Like as a way for Harvard, he said that. So he kind of, so in a way, that is something that has come to an end. But of course, that's now Tamara. It's part of Tamara's story. But I was able to follow her and support her through all the activities over the years, which it's never ending. The solidarity, and that is never ending. And about your question, I think that those who came before us, they are still manifesting in our actions we do today, because without them, we wouldn't be here. And it's a miracle we are here. That was survived by our ancestors. It's like,
yeah. It is a miracle that we don't take time enough to just think that, wow, it is a miracle that we survived everything our ancestors survived and their ancestors survived. And yeah, we are here. And thank you for being here with me as we have traveled through your work with the cards. Thank you so much. And what's next for you? What if someone is interested in following you? You have your Instagram, of course, Sasha Huber, also your website, sashahuber.com. But what's next? What are your plans that you can share? Because you may be working on something you can't share right now. But go ahead.
Just to link still to what we were just talking about, the saying, I forgot who said it, but you're, what was it? Something like, you live your ancestors' wildest dreams. This is something it comes to my mind regularly, and I feel very privileged that I'm allowed to do this art, because when you are in the middle of the whole situation, there is no time for doing art. It's about surviving life and so on, and I have the opportunity to do what I feel I am here for, and from working further at the moment, that the first series is continuing. I'm working on a new portrait. Also, I haven't started yet. It will be an offering of mine to portray BC Silva. She was from Nigeria, a curator who brought the amazing talents, mostly photographer from the continent, to be shown all over the world. She passed away some years ago, and she started the Center for Contemporary Art and with an amazing library. And I'm planning to portray her, and I just hope I get the funding together to be able to go. But then I'm also continuing the Agassiz project. I started going as in 2023. I was in the US in Alaska, collaborating with the Tlingit community, and wanting also at the time when I started the project, I could do it myself because I'm Swiss, but I worked in 6 different countries on the same project, and I always collaborate with indigenous peoples there, like in Aotearoa, New Zealand, for example, or in Canada. I collaborate with Inuit throat singers, amazing people, and now I work with people in Alaska, and it continues. Even there's going to be a second part of this reparative intervention that I was able to do at the time, but I'm now working on a second part. But now I cannot go to the US, or I don't want to go to the US. We know why. So, and then I also collaborate with my partner, Petri Sariko, who's an artist does his own art, but we also collaborate together and doing work which is called Remedies, which is about oral family knowledge that has been transmitted mostly via the grandmothers, so the elders. And we do some new work for that. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on all the time.
You're going to be very busy. Okay. Well, Sasha, thank you so much for sharing your work and sharing your views. I really appreciate it. And to the folks who have been watching or listening, thank you so much for spending time. And then until next time, take care. Bye.
Thank you.